a quick look at Screencastify. And if you've not yet been made aware, for this school year, 2020 to 2021, Chinook's Edge will be providing a license for teachers who wish to use Screencastify to assist with our remote learning that's part of this global quarantine. So if you don't have Screencastify, but you're feeling like it would be a valuable tool for you, do connect with your principal to have a conversation about that. So Screencastify is an extension, just like any of the others that you've got up here on your tray. It should appear here, and if you don't see it in here, if you click this little puzzle piece here, that's going to show you the rest of your extensions, and that includes the ones that are up here along the top line. So you see I've got eLink here and eLink here. This is your full listing of ones you've got installed. So I see in here that I've got Screencastify installed. I've got some ability to remove it from Chrome. It is an extension that has full access into your drive, but it's completely safe. It records your screen and then it puts the data into your drive. It does not go onto a Screencastify server. So if I was going to make a screencast video, much like this one, using Screencastify, I would get my screen set up and then I would click on the extension and I've got some choices. So I can record a browser tab, which if I pick that one, it's only going to record the tab that I'm on. If I'm going to be switching between tabs, then I want to choose desktop. And if I just want to record a little video of myself talking to my students, maybe for that first Monday back when we go to online learning, I can turn it to webcam only, and all it's going to record is just me. So if I wanted to read a story, I would consult the copyright rules, because some books you're totally allowed to read and record, some books you're not. But that might be a really good use for the webcam only. Microphone, I can choose if I've got an external microphone that is attached to my computer. If I'm not happy with the audio that I get from my computer, I could install an external microphone. And embed webcam, what that does is that creates one of those videos where you can see the person talking in one of the corners. So when I embed the webcam, it turns that on and it'll start with me down here in the bottom right-hand corner talking, but I can drag that where I want on the screen. There is research out there that suggests that having the visual of the teacher on a flipped classroom recording or a home learning recording is valuable, but that also doesn't necessarily meet the comfort zone of all teachers. So if you're not comfortable doing it, by all means, don't. And if you are comfortable doing it, by all means do, but you have the option. I'm going to turn it off for this video. Then there are a few more options down here. So here's my countdown, and I can choose on the countdown between 3 seconds, 5 seconds, and 10 seconds. A countdown is a really important part of doing a screencast because it lets you know to take a deep breath, get ready, because we're about to go. Up here, I've got access into my recordings. I've got notifications. So there's a free master, the screencast course, and maybe I should take a look at that, but just some news from Screencastify is going to show up in there. And then I've got my settings. So this first one would allow me to resize the tab and record at a lower resolution. So if I was out in one of our more remote towns, Spruceview maybe, or Delburn, where a lot of the kids are rural and they're relying on rural Wi-Fi, I might want to resize this. And it'll actually make the screen look a little bit smaller, and that would be what I'm recording then. Now I'm not going to change it for here, because as soon as I downgrade the quality, I have to restart all of my Chrome tabs to get that 1903 by 859 back, and I want to record this one at a pretty good resolution. So once I'm ready to go, I hit record. Now I have 3 screens going. I've got a triple monitor. Do I want to record this screen, or this screen? This is the one where I'm doing the work. And on my particular computer, this one is the one where the webcam is. So if I'm using the webcam, you're going to be getting a profile view of me. So I would need to make some adjustments there. So I just want it to record screen 2. And there's my countdown. And so now I'm recording. Here's my drawing tools down at the bottom. You maybe saw that that was available in the options at the beginning. And so when I use Screencastify, now I just drew that with my mouse, it puts a folder into my Google Drive, and that's where my screen recordings are going to save automatically. Now, one of the things that's a little bit challenging with Screencastify is it saves by default. Your format is going to be a WBM file, and that's not a universal file. That's what Screencastify automatically saves your files as, is a .webm. I'm going to talk about that in just a second. It's just something to have in the back of your mind. You don't need to understand all the file extension stuff. Just be aware that Screencastify records in a proprietary manner. So I'm going to erase my annotations here, and we're going to carry on with what we're doing here. So now I'm done recording. I come up to Screencastify and I press stop. Then I need to give it a minute to load my video into the editor. And you can see in front of you now, as it's previewing my whopping minute 13 video, that the drawing that I did, and if I was on a touchscreen Chromebook, I could be even all the more accurate with my drawing on the screen. You'll note when I wrote the WEBM that it was pretty shaky. It's because I'm writing with a mouse. So now that it's here, and my video is only a minute 13. So I'm down here looking at the 113 is the duration of my video. If I had recorded a 10 or 15 minute video, it would take Screencastify longer to get it into this screen. So if you've recorded a lengthy lecture, please don't panic when it takes some time for it to come into your folder or your Google Drive or onto your screen. Note also, right now I'm on a Screencastify tab. I can title this, so I'm going to call it Demo December 11th, 2020. And now I can come over here and I can open it in an editor. If I didn't feel I needed to edit it, I can right away, I've got my sharing options over here, and there's more than just what I see here. So I could publish it directly to YouTube. That would be probably the one that I would recommend the highest, and it's actually at the top of the list. YouTube is built for handling video. And when we're trying to deliver some video to our rural students, if we've published it to YouTube, they have those controls in YouTube that will allow them to downgrade the resolution of the video on their own screen if it's glitching. Let's take a look. Okay, so there we have our lovely Christmas video. I'm going to mute it. And if I come over here as a user, I can control the quality. So if I'm on rural Wi-Fi and this is just straight up not working for me, it's set to auto detect. But I could totally bring that down to it's grainier, but at least my Wi-Fi will handle it. So I do recommend that you post to YouTube. If you go in the hub, I do have some instructions on the Learning Hub about using YouTube for classroom lessons, because you can control the privacy and you can make sure that your stuff is locked down really quite nicely. Okay, back to Screencastify. I'm going to open this in the editor. And so Screencastify has their own online editor. So you'll see now I'm on edit.screencastify.com. And here's where I can start taking my video apart or putting in some little pieces of text to assist students with looking where I want them to look and utilizing text to just summarize the concepts that I want them to take away. We don't want to use too much text in a video because it can really create a cognitive overload. We want to use the text in a really targeted manner to try to reduce the cognitive load that the students are experiencing with this. So I'm going to go through the tools. First of all, over here, we've got the magnifying tool. That is not going to magnify the screen. That's going to magnify our video on the timeline. So my video sits down here and I can see that it's a minute and 13 seconds long, and it says I'm at 56 seconds. So if we look, there's the little slider. Now I'm at 58, now I'm at 44. I can slide it around and I come to a different point in the video. If I need to make this bigger, it does give me this lovely thumbnail view down here. And so I can see this part was before I drew that line. Now the line's there. And as I scroll through it, there's the circling of the file. And so I can see what's on here. Now, if I'd really made a mistake in the middle, and it's rare to sit down and just make a screencast that you don't need to edit. It does happen sometimes, and it's really lovely when it does, but usually there's some part you need to take out. When I'm recording things like this video, if I trip over some of my words, I pause, recollect my thoughts, and then I come in afterwards and I delete that part where I kind of lost my train of thought for a second and I need to remove that. So I'm going to click on here. We're going to pretend that right here is a little error that I need to clip out. So I'm going to click on the timeline here, and then I'm going to come up here and I'm going to cut it. So now I've got two pieces of video. So this is the part where I was kind of tripping over my words and I want to get rid of it. And right there is kind of where I got my brain back together. And I'm going to make a second clip right here. So I have to click on the video on the timeline and I hit cut. Okay, so there it is. It sits in between the two. Now I can click on that little piece of video footage, and if I click the delete button, it's gone. So now that part where I totally paused talking, now I can get rid of that. To find those spots, you would have to play through the video. I'm just not going to waste your time playing through this video to just show you how to use a tool. If I'm wanting to crop something, so maybe I don't want the kids to see all this stuff across the bottom of my screen, I can crop the video. So it tells me to draw a rectangle to crop. So I want to just show that part of my video. If I like what I've got, I can hit done. If I don't, I can hit reset and try again. Now, as a video editor, I have made a fundamental error here. I should have done this part before I split this, because I'm probably not going to get the next cropping to be identical. And without a transition to pull the two together in kind of a flowing manner, it's going to be an abrupt change. Let's watch. So I'm going to go done, and I'm going to try and crop this one similarly. I need to draw a rectangle, so I'll draw my rectangle. And I'll choose done. And now we're going to play it from here through and probably see a jolt that piece, but you can see how it does adjust. It zooms a little closer because my crop was not identical. So if I was doing this with the intention to share it to my classroom or for children, I would probably undo my last few steps and do the cropping before I do the split. If you need to undo something, you do have undo tools up here. Okay, so now I would take this, I would crop it, and that's going to keep my crop consistent throughout the entire piece of video. So I will click here and I'm going to snip. And I'm going to move my slider over a little bit, click on my video, snip. I'm going to click on that and remove it. So now we're back to where it was, but this time I have a nice smooth transition between the clips because I did that cropping prior to snipping. You've got a couple more things up here. So I can start a new project from up here. I can access all of my recordings. I can send feedback and I can ask for help. There's not a ton of bells and whistles on the Screencastify editor. It is designed to be simple and to allow you to remove things and add in text, crop some things out, but you're not going to find all of the bells and whistles of a professional video editor. This is really a screencast video editor. The last thing I'll make a point of mentioning is that I can add text onto my video. The text is fairly basic in its ability, but I can type key takeaway. And really, when you're making a video, that's the only time you use the text feature, is something that you really want your viewers to remember. I don't have a ton of control in terms of where this goes on the screen. I cannot drag it. So I want you to picture the screen like an X's and O board. There's 9 spaces where I can put this. So I've got my left side, center, right side, center, top and bottom. So I can put in the top left, top right, top middle, just like an X's and O board. If I want to change the font, let's just move this up to the top. And if I wanted to change the font, I do have a few fonts in here. There's not many. This is not professional editing. This is just a screencast editor. So I can change the font to one of 5. That one's quite bold. Roboto is quite easily read. And if you want something kind of cute, Indie Flowers in there. I can put a background color behind my text, which on video can sometimes be very necessary because depending on what you're editing, the video may be moving along and you put your text on at the start, but as the video moves, depending on what comes into the background behind the text can become very difficult to read. So you might want to change the color of your font and change the background because that is going to be readable regardless of what goes in behind that text on my video. Now, if we look down here, that's the text. And so I can make it last longer on the timeline. If I want that to just stay there for all of that duration, it'll stay there. If I only want that to be there for a little bit of time, I just shrink it down. And so now I can type my key takeaway. There it disappears. And we're going to call this ready to go. So I've edited it. I've added in the words. I've cropped it. Now I'm ready to get it to a place where my kiddos can have it. I'm going to export it. And you have 2 choices here. You can export MP4. You can export to Google Drive. Because we're working on Chromebooks, I would do the export to Google Drive. I'm going to name it. So it's demo December 11th, 2020. And I'm going to save it. Now, depending on how long your video is, a 10-minute video is going to take a lot longer to do this process, which we call rendering if we want to be technical. A 10-minute video is going to take longer than a 1-minute video. A 30-minute video is going to take even longer. So again, if it takes a while to do this, just be patient with it. The more text I have on my video, the longer this is going to take. So now it's in the Screencastify folder in my Google Drive. There we see it. Demo December 11th, 2020 MP4, because that has been edited and exported. If we look at the further details, I'm the owner of it, and it was modified or saved into this folder at 1:00 p.m. Now here's where we see the original Screencastify video before I edited it. And you'll see that it's a WEBM file. And that is not a file that we can load into YouTube. It's not a file that's going to play very nicely with anything. So really we do want to go through that process of editing, even if we have a perfect video that we don't need to add any text onto, we don't need to edit out any audio problems. We still want to do the edit. So when you've got it here, even if I'm not going to do any actual editing to it, I'm going to open it in the editor anyways. And this time I'm not going to do anything to it. I'm just going to export it. So this is my original 1 and 13-second video. It's exactly what I had in mind for my kids. So I'm just going to export it to Google Drive. And the reason for doing that is so that it changes from a WEBM file to an MP4. MP4 is universal. That one's going to play on any type of computer. That one will play on a tablet. That one will load into YouTube, which again, I'm going to say it one more time. I highly recommend putting your classroom content onto YouTube so that your rural kiddos or your kids who don't have great internet at home can control the resolution. The last thing I will mention is that if you are going to use YouTube, if you are not going to be editing the video at all, you can publish it directly to YouTube from within Screencastify's original window. You'll note that I haven't yet opened it in the editor, and so I do have this choice to publish to YouTube if I happen to have recorded a video that I don't feel needs any editing or any text added to it. But that marks the end of this tutorial. If you have questions, please don't hesitate to connect with me or reach out to me. I'm happy to help you navigate this at any time that you need some help. Thanks for watching.